David Turner, a 42-year-old environmental engineer, had always dreamed of owning a peaceful lakeside property. After years of working long hours, saving every bonus, and passing on luxuries, he finally bought a stunning home in Crestwood Shores, a gated suburban community built around a large private lake. What the Homeowners Association, HOA, didn't realize, however, was that David had done more than purchase a house. He had purchased the original property that predated the development, land that included full ownership of the lake and docks. The developer, years ago, had sold the neighborhood lots with lake access rights, but the title and rights remained with the original estate, the one David now owned. On his first week, neighbors waved politely, though some watched him with suspicion. Crestwood Shores was not a diverse community, and David knew that some people didn't like the idea of a successful black man moving into their neighborhood. Still, he kept his head high, eager to enjoy fishing, kayaking, and evenings on the porch overlooking the water. Trouble began when he received his first HOA letter. The message was blunt. The HOA meeting was held in the clubhouse overlooking the very lake David owned. The room was filled with well-dressed residents and an air of self-importance. At the head of the table sat Carol Simmons, the HOA president, an older woman with a sharp voice and an even sharper glare. When David introduced himself as the new homeowner, Carol wasted no time. "Mr. Turner," she said firmly, "as a member of Crestwood Shores, you must turn over lake management to the HOA. That includes docks, boat slips, and shoreline use." David calmly pulled out a folder. "Actually, I think there's a misunderstanding. I purchased the original Turner estate property. According to this deed, the lake is part of my land, and the docks are under my control. You all have access rights, but ownership remains with me." The room buzzed with whispers. Carol's face reddened. "That can't be true. The HOA runs this neighborhood. We make the rules." "Not when it comes to my property," David replied evenly. "You can't fine me for something you don't own." Carol slammed her hand on the table. "We'll see about that. You may think you can stroll in here and take over, but Crestwood Shores has order. If you don't comply, we'll take you to court." David simply leaned back, confident. He had already spoken with a lawyer. The HOA didn't realize they had just picked a fight they couldn't win. The following weeks were tense. The HOA sent daily letters, increasing the fines against David. Residents glared at him when he jogged by or sat by the water. Some even muttered under their breath about how he didn't belong there. But David wasn't rattled. Instead, he began quietly enforcing his rights. He posted signs around the lake. "Private property, lake and docks under ownership of Turner Estate. Access permitted." The signs caused an uproar. Residents who had long believed the HOA owned the water were shocked to discover they needed permission from the man they were trying to bully. Carol called an emergency HOA meeting, rallying residents against David. She painted him as a threat to community traditions, and claimed he was holding the lake hostage. But when some residents reviewed their deeds, they realized David was right. He wasn't blocking access, he was simply exercising his ownership. Meanwhile, David began repairing the neglected docks and even cleaned parts of the shoreline. Quietly, a few neighbors started thanking him. They saw that he was improving the lake more than the HOA ever had. But Carol wasn't backing down. She filed a lawsuit on behalf of the HOA, demanding David hand over the lake. David, calm as ever, was ready. He had the law on his side, and the HOA was about to be humiliated. Court day arrived, and the courtroom was packed. Carol and her board sat proudly at one table, certain they would teach him a lesson. David sat at the other with his attorney, his expression calm but resolute. The judge reviewed the evidence, the original land deed, the property lines, and the HOA bylaws. It took less than an hour for the truth to be made clear. The HOA, the judge announced, does not the lake or the docks. Ownership rests with Mr. David Turner. The HOA has no authority to demand control, levy fines, or restrict Mr. Turner's property rights. Case dismissed. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Carol's face drained of color. David simply nodded respectfully and walked out, victorious. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The HOA, embarrassed and weakened, stopped harassing him. Some neighbors apologized, while others continued to glare in silence. David didn't care. He installed new benches by the docks, invited children to fish, and even held a small community barbecue by the water. Slowly, people realized that the man they had tried to push out was actually the one improving their neighborhood. For David, the victory wasn't just about property, it was about respect. He had stood his ground, refused to be bullied, and shown Crestwood Shores that dignity and determination would always triumph over arrogance and prejudice. And as he sat on his porch watching the sunset over his lake, David knew one thing: they would never forget the day they tried to take his water, and failed. Sparkle's moral of the story: never underestimate someone based on prejudice. True strength lies in knowledge, patience, and standing firm for what's right.